Have you ever stared into the dark corner of your own bedroom and felt like someone was staring back? What if I told you that I played a game that opened something in me, something I couldn't close? This isn't a campfire story. This isn't a creepy pasta. This happened, and to this day, when the lights go out, I can still feel it watching me. I had just moved into a new house. My parents had saved for years, and finally, in December of 2022, we left the cramped apartment behind and stepped into this newly renovated, almost empty home. The walls were white. The rooms echoed when I spoke. At night, it was silent in a way I wasn't used to. No neighbors stomping upstairs, no traffic outside the window, just silence. One evening, a friend of mine came over. We were talking about scary rituals, games you weren't supposed to play, and that's when he brought up something I had never heard before, the Four Corners game. He said it came from urban legends, that if you played it, something would happen. Maybe not right away, but eventually. And of course, I didn't believe him. That was my first mistake. He explained the rules. Simple. You need a dark room, four corners, at least two people, one standing in the center. The person in the middle closes their eyes, spins slowly, and points to a corner. If someone's standing there, they're out. If the corner's empty, the game keeps going. It sounds harmless, right? Like a stupid sleepover dare. But the warning was the part that stuck with me. He said, if you call the wrong corner too many times, something else might answer. We laughed it off. But the empty living room with its four sharp corners, bare walls, and a single dim lamp, it was perfect. So we turned off the light and started. At first it was boring. I stood in the middle, spun slowly with my eyes closed, and pointed. My friend giggled when he got called out. Then he pointed. Then I moved to a corner. Over and over again we played. Minutes passed, then an hour. Nothing happened. But it's strange. I remember at one point I pointed to an empty corner. Or at least I thought it was empty. Because when I opened my eyes, it felt like someone had just been standing there, like I was catching the tail end of movement, a shadow slipping away. I told myself I was imagining it, but then the air, it got heavier. You know how a room feels when a storm is about to break? That heavy pressure that squeezes your lungs? That's what it felt like in there. My friend went pale. He asked if I felt it too. I laughed, but my voice cracked. I wanted to stop. And when we turned the lights back on, the corners of the room looked darker than they should have been, like the shadows were thicker, denser, watching. We didn't think much of it after that night. Just a weird, creepy game, but the next few days, something changed. The first thing was the shadows. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I swear I'd see someone standing in the corner of my room. Tall, still, not moving. I'd blink and it would vanish. Then came the dreams. Dreams of being chased down endless hallways. Dreams where I was paralyzed, lying in my bed, while something leaned over me, whispering words I couldn't understand. I told myself it was stress. Maybe my brain replaying the game, but then my friend called me. He said he couldn't sleep, that he was seeing things too. One night he woke up and saw a shadow crouched in the corner of his ceiling, its long arms hanging down. He swore it turned its head and smiled at him. And he wasn't the kind of person to make things up. That's when I realized whatever we had invited, it had followed us home. By the second week, I couldn't sleep at all. Every night the shadows grew bolder. They weren't just in the corners anymore. They moved. I'd catch glimpses of them in mirrors, in windows. Sometimes I'd feel cold fingers brush against my skin in the dark. And the whispers. Late at night, lying in bed, I'd hear faint whispers in my ear, like someone kneeling right beside me, murmuring things I couldn't understand. I stopped eating. My grades dropped. My parents noticed, but how could I explain? Hey, Mom, Dad, I think I opened some kind of portal in the living room, but it was real and it was getting worse. One night, I woke up gasping. Something was on top of me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. A figure loomed over me, its face inches from mine, hollow eyes, a grin stretched too wide. Its body was just darkness, dripping and crawling across my chest. I felt its breath on my face, cold, rotten, and then, just as suddenly, it was gone. I woke up the next morning shaking, drenched in sweat. That was the last straw. My parents finally took me to a temple. The practitioner listened, nodded, and then said something that made my blood run cold. Your third eye has been forced open. Something has attached itself to you. They performed a ritual, burning incense, chanting, waving talismans over me. I felt dizzy. I felt sick. But when it was done, the room felt lighter for the first time in weeks. I slept peacefully, but the warning the practitioner gave me still haunts me to this day. They told me the game you played was not a game. It was an invitation. You may have closed your third eye, but once the shadows know your name, they never forget it. It's been months since then. The nightmares are gone. The shadows are gone. Or at least, that's what I thought. But last night, just before I fell asleep, I swear I saw something move in the corner of my room. Would you dare play the Four Corners game? Have you ever been so cold that you were certain you wouldn't live to see the morning? I was there, in the mountains, snow biting into my skin, lungs burning, heart pounding slower and slower. And when we found that old cabin, I thought we were saved. But the truth is, what kept us alive that night wasn't human, and even now, I still don't know if it saved us or claimed us. It was supposed to be a simple hiking trip. Just four friends, a winter trail, and a weekend away from the city. We thought we were prepared. Boots, coats, backpack stuffed with supplies, but the mountains don't care how ready you think you are. The storm came fast. First a light flurry, then heavy snow, then nothing but white. We lost the trail, we lost the sun, we could barely see each other. The wind screamed in our ears and the snow stung like needles on our faces. By the time we stumbled across that cabin, we were half frozen, half delirious. Inside it was just four walls and a broken lantern we managed to light. No firewood, no blankets, just emptiness. We knew one thing for sure. If we slept, the cold would take us. So one of us, I think it was Min, said we have to stay awake, no matter what. That's when Jiho, the joker of our group, smirked and said, then let's make it a game. The Four Corners game, that's how it began. The rules were simple. Each of us took a corner of the room. One person would cross the room and tap the shoulder of whoever stood in the next corner. That person would then do the same, over and over. It sounded ridiculous, but it kept us moving, kept the blood flowing in our veins. At first we laughed. Our teeth chattered too hard to even talk properly, but we laughed anyway. Four friends stumbling around a freezing cabin, taking turns like children. But after a while, something felt strange. The cycle should have broken. With only four people, someone should have been left waiting in their corner. But every time I crossed, there was always someone already there, moving on. The rhythm never stopped. Tap, move, tap, move. Four people. But the game flowed like there were five. At first I thought I was just tired, my mind playing tricks. But then I started noticing details. A shadow that stretched longer than it should have in the lantern light. A tap on my shoulder that was colder, heavier than any of my friends. And once, just once, I caught a glimpse in the corner of my eye. Someone standing where no one should have been. Taller, broader, head tilted at an unnatural angle. When I spun to look, the corner was empty, but deep down I knew the truth. We weren't four anymore. Something else was playing with us, keeping the cycle alive. The hours dragged on. The storm outside howled like it wanted to tear the cabin apart. We moved through the motions, numb with exhaustion, too scared to stop. The strangest thing, none of us spoke. Not after that first hour. It was like something held our voices down, forcing us into silence. The game became mechanical. Tap, step, turn, tap. Once Min whispered, "I think there's someone else." We all froze, but before any of us could answer, the tapping continued. Only none of us had moved yet. I'll never forget that sound. The weight of footsteps crossing the floorboards, the soft tap on a shoulder, and the four of us, still frozen in place. That was when I realized, whatever it was, it didn't need our permission to play. By some miracle, the storm eased with the first light of morning. We collapsed near the door, half dead from exhaustion. That's where the rescue team found us. They wrapped us in blankets, carried us down the mountain. One of the men asked, "How did you kids survive the night with no fire?" I told him the truth. "We kept moving. We played a game." He frowned. "A game?" I nodded. "The Four Corners game. 4 of us." That's when his face went pale. He said, "Then why were there 5 sets of footprints in the snow?" I froze. My stomach dropped. 5. I wanted to believe he was mistaken, that he miscounted, that it was just the storm. But I remembered the cold hand, the too heavy tap, the 5th shadow stretching across the wall. And then I remembered something else. We started the hike as 5. There was another friend, Seo-jun. He slipped during the storm. We searched, but the snow swallowed him. We thought he was gone. But in the cabin, the cycle never broke. 4 corners, 5 turns. Seo-jun had come back. And he hadn't come alone. People say the Four Corners game is just an urban legend, a silly ritual kids tell to scare each other. But I know better, because that night something impossible joined us in the cabin. And sometimes, even now, when I'm alone in my room, I feel it again. The tap on my shoulder, the shadow in the corner, the cold hand that doesn't let go. We left that cabin as 4, but inside there are still 5. Have you ever looked around a room and realized one of your friends had simply vanished? Not left, not walked away, not even made a sound, just gone. That happened to me one night when we played something called the Four Corners game, and even though it's been years, I still can't explain what I saw or where my friend went. But I can tell you this, some doors once opened never close. It was late, past midnight. There were 4 of us, me, Hana, Min, and Jiho. We were bored, restless, and too hyped up to sleep. Someone brought up urban legends, the creepy rituals people play for fun, and that's when Jiho mentioned the Four Corners game. None of us had heard of it before. He explained the rules. We laughed, thought it sounded dumb, but at the same time, something about it intrigued us. It needed 4 players, a dark room, 4 corners, perfect, because the guest room we were hanging out in had nothing but bare walls, a single bulb, and plenty of space. We thought it would be harmless, just another spooky dare, but what happened that night still keeps me awake. We switched off the lights. Instantly the room changed. What had felt plain and boring just a moment before now felt wrong, empty, yet heavy. We stood in our corners, nervous giggles echoing in the dark. Jiho in the center spun slowly with his eyes closed and pointed. 5 minutes. Nothing happened. 10 minutes. We kept swapping corners, pointing, laughing when we bumped into each other. But around the 15-minute mark, something shifted. The air grew cold, too cold. My breath came out in soft white clouds. And then I noticed it. In the corner across from me, I saw someone standing. But it wasn't one of us. The shape was too tall, the shoulders too sharp, the head tilted at an unnatural angle. I blinked. Gone. I told myself I imagined it. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. We tried to keep playing, but the tension grew. Every time we pointed at an empty corner, it felt like maybe it wasn't empty at all. Then suddenly, Hannah was gone. 1 second she was laughing behind me. The next, silence. We called her name, no answer. We felt along the walls, thinking maybe she'd slipped out as a prank. Nothing. I flipped the lights on. She wasn't there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. We searched every corner of the room. Empty. That's when Min screamed. We rushed down the hallway, and there she was. Hannah was standing in the bathroom, staring into the mirror. Her reflection didn't look quite right. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, and her eyes didn't seem to follow us when we moved. We shook her. She blinked, confused, and whispered, "I don't remember how I got here." She swore the last thing she remembered was standing in the corner during the game, and then nothing. None of us spoke for a long time. We didn't even finish the game. We just sat together, terrified, waiting for the first light of dawn. When morning came, Hannah still couldn't explain what had happened. She looked drained, like she hadn't slept in days, even though she swore she had just woken up in that bathroom. For weeks afterward, things were off. Doors in the house would open on their own. We'd hear footsteps in empty rooms. Hannah started forgetting things, small at first, then bigger. She'd forget entire conversations, even entire days, but the worst was when she told me. She still dreamed of that corner. Over and over again, she dreamed she was standing there in the dark, and something was standing behind her. One night, a few months later, Hannah called me, panicked. She said she'd woken up in her bathroom again, standing in front of the mirror. She didn't remember walking there. She said she saw something in the reflection behind her, a tall, thin figure with a crooked head and long arms, and then the call cut out. When I called back, she didn't answer. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She said she didn't remember calling me at all. But the strange part? On my phone. I still have the recording of that call. And if you listen closely, after Hannah's voice, you can hear another voice whispering in the background, a low, guttural voice saying, "Stay in the corner." It's been years since that night, and I've never played that game again. But Hannah? She's not the same. Sometimes when she zones out, her eyes go blank, like she's somewhere else. And when I ask her what's wrong, she just whispers, "I was back in the corner again." So if you ever find yourself with 3 friends in a dark, empty room with 4 corners, don't play. Because sometimes the game doesn't end when you turn the lights back on. Sometimes it follows you home.